Hello, and welcome to Take Your Time, a Persona 5 Royal podcast, in which I take my time doing this intro. No, I'm not going to do that to you, otherwise this episode would be 3 hours long. Hey everyone, I'm Jonathan Dornbush, and I'm hosting this week's episode 40. We're on our 40th episode of Take Your Time, and what a joy it is. We've got some exciting stuff to talk about in the world of Persona 5 Royal, and as always, I'm joined by Tom Marks. Tom, I can't talk. I'm too excited.
Hello, Jonathan.
We're gonna Porky Pig.
Exactly.
Do Porky Pig impressions for the whole episode. People will love it. No, we're jumping into we're continuing our look into the first full week of January that we're diving into, January 3rd through January 9th. And boy, is it more royal stuff that I don't know about and I'm excited to jump into.
Woo!
It's really fun to be able to finally play this stuff and finally be able to talk about it with everyone. Thank you to everyone who's been writing in, especially because we're getting into the royal section of the game. Obviously, I can tell a lot of people who are either playing for the first time or who have played before and are kind of listening along with us are very excited that we've gotten to this point.
I'm very excited.
A lot to talk about. Yeah, a lot to dig into. But before we get there, including some of your comments, Tom, I do want to start with a pop quiz answer.
Yes. So last week I asked, they were talking about, the objects you're supposed to dream about on your first dream of the new year. And those objects, as Makoto, I believe, correctly pointed out, are Mount Fuji, a hawk, and an eggplant. Ryuji had his own guess. I asked, which of those did he actually get right? And we got one correct answer that I saw in the comments, which was from Hannah. Jonathan, did you have a guess, or did you...
It is Mount Fuji?
It is.
Okay. I thought eggplant would be a bit much, so...
Ryuji's, I believe, were Mount Fuji, sheep, and okra, which I love that it's just like
right.
like adjacent to the right things, right? But it's just not at all.
Yeah. It's it was a very funny bit. I also just I don't know why, but I feel this is a total tangent, but I feel like I went from never hearing about okra to always hearing about okra in my life recently. I don't know how that happened, but that's not a word that I ever thought of a year ago, and now I hear it all the time. And okra tastes good. I'm not knocking okra. It's just
I am. I don't like okra at all.
Oh. Well, I guess we should just end the show there then.
Yeah.
Seems we can't get past these.
No, I think if there's one thing that Persona 5 has taught us is that if two people have differences, they should just never speak again.
That's true.
And they're not meant for each other.
Actually, I'm going to go change your mind. So, and change your heart. So enjoy having a weird panic attack like a month from now, right before a major event of your life.
God.
Yeah, that's basically what they do every time.
It's true. Anyway, sound off in the comments if you are pro or against okra.
That's the big debate of this week. I'm definitely gonna put a poll on the Spotify version because I can do that now. A quick reminder, by the way, I usually say this at the end, but I'm gonna say it now because I mentioned Spotify. If you listen on Spotify, you can now rate shows on Spotify. So please consider rating this show if you're enjoying it and getting it out there to more Persona fans. We appreciate it. But speaking of all the wonderful Persona fans who do listen, we have a bunch of comments and some emails to get through. I'm going to start with the emails, none of which Tom has seen. So any jokes in them will be first passes, and I can't wait. Anyway, the first email, you can write in to dornology@gmail.com, comes from Jake, and Jake wrote in and said, "Hi Tom and Jonathan, long-time fan, first-time writer. I started leisurely listening to the show in August, taking my time listening, you may say, but after realizing that we are already in the new year and the game will be wrapping up in a matter of weeks, I decided to binge the show so I can catch up in time for the finale." Well, thank you for doing that. I listened to all of October today and am now beginning November. Throughout all the weeks, I've had one big question in mind that I do not believe has been addressed, so I've been dying to ask, which intro song and sequence do you two prefer? Persona 5's Wake Up, Get Out There, or Royal's Colors Flying High? I know friend of the show, Barrett Courtney, prefers the original P5 intro. Barrett, sound off in the comments if that is true or not. But I personally will die on the hill that P5R intro is elite. The style, the vibrancy of the colors, and the way it gives all the thieves fun and equal screen time is just superior to the way the original P5 intro handled it. Not to mention Colors Flying High is an absolute get-hyped banger, more so than Wake Up, Get Out There, in my opinion. But which do you prefer? Anyway, thanks so much. I've been loving the show and are excited to see what you two do next. Bonk you later, Jake. Tom?
I think I'm gonna go with a mix. I think I like Wake Up better as a song, but I think the new intro is definitely more like visually fun and interesting.
Okay.
Also, they're wearing their winter outfits in it, and I'm a sucker for that.
That's true. That upsets me because I was going to say the exact same thing, so now we sound boring. I will say, though, I guess I do agree. I think like on a visual level, and it's hard, though, because I think the Royal version is more enjoyable to watch if you already know all these characters.
That's true.
Like, I think as an introduction, the base games version is better. But I do enjoy watching Five's Royals more. I will say, though, that, like, and this is somewhat of a tangent, back when I first fell in love with Kingdom Hearts, it was because I was so into that, the introductory music video, essentially, that plays.
Simple and clean?
Yes, yeah. And when that plays and how, like, amazing that was to me as a 10-year-old and just blew my mind. And that was like, okay, I'm really into this game just from the start. I had a similar experience, and I rarely have this anymore because most games just kind of don't do it this way. But I had a similar experience when I first sat down to play Persona 5 and was kind of like, am I really going to give 120 hours to this RPG? And just saw that intro, was like, oh, this is cool. I'm into this. And so, like, I have a sort of, like, special affinity for the base version because I think it is, like, it really gets you in the style and the mood and the tone of the game.
Yeah.
In a great way.
Yeah, I agree.
Anyway, that's a wishy-washy answer from me, but there we go. Thank you, though, for writing in, Jake. This next one comes from Ronan. Ronan wrote in and said, "What's bonking, Jonathan and Tom? Love the show, you guys. Starting it up with the impetus I needed to finish off base Persona 5 and finally pick up Royal, and I love chipping away at it a day at a time and hearing your thoughts and analysis over the weeks. You both have mentioned potentially doing a follow-up season, possibly with P4G, but with the news that one of the free games on PlayStation Plus this month is Persona 5 Strikers, I wondered if it would make a good follow-up given the timing of this and its nature as a direct sequel. Whatever you guys decide, it's been great listening to you both over these past 8 months. I hope it's been as much fun for you to make as it has been for me to listen to. Kind regards, Ronan. P.S. What do you guys think of the significance of Moriarty being the name of the patient in the House Season 2 finale? And really, I think it's impossible to not discuss House without discussing Sherlock Holmes. Obviously, the two are just inextricably... Yes, for those who don't know, Tom is just about to leave the show. For those who don't have PlayStation Plus or maybe didn't see this, Persona 5 Strikers is free for the month if you're a subscriber. So, like, go get that if you're a subscriber.
And are listening in real time.
Exactly, yeah. If you're listening currently in the month of January, go get that thing. And, download that game because you should. It's the sequel. I've only played a little bit of it. Tom, you played the full thing, obviously.
I reviewed it for IGN, and I really enjoyed it. I think that there's a lot of misconceptions. This is just like a timeless, right, sort of statement of if you're playing it on PS Plus or buying it later or whatever. Like, there's a misconception that it is like to Persona what Hyrule Warriors was to Zelda, right? Which was like a Dynasty Warriors style clone. And it's much more RPG than it is like Musou game. And it's really, really fun. And the story is basically exactly a direct sequel, right? Like it is a direct sequel, and it is almost on the level, I think, in terms of like story quality to me. It's just shorter, and so there's a lot less like kind of in between stories and moments. But yeah, if you like Persona 5 and you have not played Strikers, I think you would like Strikers, basically. Like, I think it is so fun to be back with those characters. The tricky thing about doing something as treating it as a sequel in terms of something like this show, and we were talking about this a little bit before, is like it is a 40 to 50-ish hour game that takes place in a month, right? Rather than a 140-hour game that takes place over 9. So it's a different pace, basically, in terms of a show like this. We're talking about stuff, right? Like we haven't made any hard plans for post show since it's still like 3 months away or whatever. But like, it's something that we're thinking about, but is like, it is not sort of the exact same beast as just like doing this or doing like P4G would be.
Yeah. There's a much different sort of ask, or we'd probably shift the schedule for covering that game a little bit,
Right,
to make it more palatable. But yeah, it's definitely something that I think I'm going to play that game after we're done with Royal. I've basically just been waiting to finish Royal.
Ironically, sort of pretends that Royal doesn't happen at all. It's basically a sequel to the base game, but that's okay.
Anyway.
And the other thing I will say, and this might be controversial, but anybody who's played Strikers and Royal will know what I'm talking about. Strikers introduces a couple new characters, and Royal has introduced a couple new characters that we've already met. I think the Strikers characters are way better.
Oh.
I like the new Strikers characters way more than I like Kasumi or Sumire and Maruki and all that. Like,
man.
Yeah, I like the new Strikers characters a lot.
Wow, because I really liked Maruki and Kasumi this whole time.
Yeah, so I mean, I like them too.
Yeah, that's high praise.
Yeah.
Last but not least on the email front, Harry wrote in and said, "Hey guys, love the show. I've had a great time listening, and I really appreciate all the weird details you focus in on. I want to come in and give a quick, fun detail about Akechi's costume, and I apologize for any mispronunciation. It's very early in the morning. I barely know how to say normal words that I have used all my life. I can't say words from other languages that I've never said before. I wanted to come in and give this fun detail. He's pretending to be aligned with the Phantom Thieves in Sai's Palace. He's wearing a red, I don't know if this is a typo or a word I don't know, but he wrote Commedia dell'arte. I think it's Commedia. Is it probably supposed to be an M?
Probably.
Anyway, mask styled like the Scaramouche, which I just really thought was something from a Queen song. The Scaramouche is often the lying henchman of the Don, who the Harlequin, or Fool, if you want to stick to Persona's Arcana, will beat when he becomes boastful. Happy New Year. Have fun storming the palace, Harry.
That's a nice little detail.
Yeah, nice, cute little fact there that I did not know about.
This game has so much attention in it, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's, like, every little thing is just, like, it's so rich.
And what's crazy about it, too, is just that it's pulling from so many different reference points, too. Like, as we've said, there's a ton from different religions, different cultural touchstones. It's mixing and matching a lot of it, too. And so, yeah, for it to be able to pull everything in, and at least, like, on the surface, feel like that stuff isn't just... It isn't being mistranslated into, this hodgepodge of stuff is really impressive. Right. Before we go on as well, just wanted to mention a viewer comment from this past week's episode. Arkwing also wrote in and said, "Fun fact, early in the game when you are stuck in traffic with Sojiro after visiting the school, he talks about how a girl died tragically in a car accident the month before Joker arrives, hinting very early on at Kasumi's death." And man... Yeah. I remember hearing that and was like, is that new? No, that was
new.
I was like, that must just be one of the mental shutdowns and I just don't remember it. But that seems new. And then didn't think about it for 9 months.
Little details that somehow make replaying a 140-hour JRPG actually, like, really worth it.
It works out. Yeah, it's really cool. And I don't know if you meant to do this, but I am just going to quickly mention, Valpal wrote in a comment, just kind of asking our thoughts on the billboards that you see in the Akechi and Joker Showtime that say two sides, same coin, and Prodigal Sons. Feels like they're both full of symbolism, Valpal said, but I don't know if I have enough background knowledge of Persona to make any good guesses. Tom and I were mentioning this before. Amy, in the comments as well, posted a really, like, in-depth sort of breakdown of what those two are most likely referencing. Two sides, same coin, I think Tom and I were both saying before the show, is like, with Joker and Akechi, you can look at them as two sides of the same coin, as well as the two sides of Akechi as the same coin. I think is kind of, it can be both there to a certain extent. And then, the Prodigal Sons is a biblical story that Amy goes into detail in the comments. But Tom, you gave a great, very quick breakdown of it, if you want to just say that.
Yeah, I mean, the phrase, right, the Prodigal Son Returns, is like, a lot of people use that, and it's basically like, the story is about, like, the prodigal son of returning in shame, right, and still being forgiven, right, by his father, and the other brother kind of being jealous of that. And it's there are clear parallels. Amy goes into it in more detail if you want to read that comment on YouTube, but like there are clear parallels, right, with Joker and Akechi and forgiveness and somebody doing something bad and coming back, and Akechi is sort of like literally going through that to a certain extent. But then there's more you can dive into. But yeah, like we were saying, tiny details where like these billboards in the background of a Showtime have a biblical context that is referential to both characters, like, is nuts.
Yeah, it's really impressive how all that stuff is continuing to pop up, and I'm sure on another playthrough I'd realize all the ones that I missed before already. But yeah, it's very cool to see all this stuff in there, and that's kind of was our hope with the show, was to be able to catch at least some of that stuff as it went by.
Yeah.
But speaking of going by, the last week has gone by, and that week was January 3rd through January 9th. So let's dig into it and discuss.
It's a quick one.
It is a quick one.
Actually, this time.
Yeah, an actually quick week this time. Tom, as you've labeled it in the run of show, if you don't mind me saying, is this an Eternal Sunshine reference?
It is.
Okay, good. He labeled it Meet Me in Montauk, and I just was like, well, I don't think you're just mentioning that because I'm from Long Island. So I'm going to assume it was Eternal Sunshine.
This whole week was very Eternal Sunshine.
It is.
Because you, like, have conversations with your party members about them not remembering something, and then you whisper quietly in their ear, like, I'll be waiting for you. And then, like, go on to the next one. And, like, it's very Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind this week.
It's very Eternal Sunshine. It's also very much, and I guess before jumping into the week, because it will take not much time, but just to, like, talk about the week as a whole, obviously each day you're kind of going and checking up on another friend.
Right.
As Maruki had said, like, see how they're enjoying this life, see if you really think you want to take them out of this, see if going back to your reality would be worth it. And you do these check-ins every day. We can get into the minutia of it, but one thing that I think is really interesting is it's essentially another take on the part of the finale of the base game that we both talked about not liking, but I like it more in this version. Where essentially when you went to everyone's jail cells and had the same conversations over and over, you're sort of doing something similar here to, like, bring them back into the fold. But, like, something about the context of it being spread out over multiple days and there being breaks in between each conversation made it more palatable for me. Like, it was simply a structural thing.
I think it's more than structure too, because Probably. It's also just like the conversations are way more interesting. The difference in in that prison scene, like, everybody's basically having the same conversation with some little bits of, like, why they are specifically unhappy. And, like, this is way more exciting to be like, whoa, Futama's hanging out with her mom, or like, oh my god, this is happening, like, right? Like, it's like a little bit more, it's just weirder and more exciting for that reason.
Yeah, and even though, because it almost does the exact same thing of, as you were saying, you basically have the same response to everyone at the end, where it's just like, I'll be waiting for you, or like, just think about that one. But the act of going in and seeing what all of them are up to, you're totally right, makes it more fascinating just from a player perspective. As opposed to just going to their jail cell and being like, wake up, dummy, come on. But yeah, so anyway, this is the week that goes by. We'll dig into it, but I think really the meat of it is the end of the week. But before we get there, starts out January 3rd, and essentially January 3rd through January 8th, up until, some stuff at the end of the 8th, is wake up, get out.
Get out there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You wake up at the diner, the cafe, excuse me. You go to the train station. You have to go to the train station. You have to decide where to go. As the week goes on, you get a little bit more, I guess, freedom there. But it runs you through the same pattern. And so the first day, I just assume, like, I am curious if you did things in any of a different order, because there's like 1 or 2 days where you can.
Yeah, I think there's a few days where you can, and yeah, I did. I imagine we probably did things in different orders. The thing I will say is,
yes,
the first day it really makes you walk the entire train path, right? Like, it's like really makes you do that, and then from after that you can kind of skip to Shibuya. I still wish it would let you just skip a little more of that walking as the week goes on, but I did really like the kind of parallel that this draws to the very beginning of the base game, right? Where it's forcing you to walk to the train to get to school, to get to all these places, and actually navigate the train line. And it that feels intentional to me. Like, this feels like that the developers sort of telling you, this is a bit of a reset, right? Mm-hmm. This is a bit of a fresh go where you're going to be starting a little bit, not from scratch, but like you're going to wander around the town because you're in a new world now, right? And this new reality is unfamiliar to you, and you get to experience it. I like that it makes you slow down and see that and feel a little bit like this is the start of something fresh again.
Yeah.
I do just wish that after like the second day, you could just go straight to the map and go to where you want.
Yeah, pretty much. Me too. It's weird because I totally agree with you. Like on a, I guess, an artistic level, it's like I think as you're saying, the parallel to the beginning of the game and the forcing you to do that makes it really sink in that this is a reset, as you said. I think really nails it. But it is juxtaposed with the idea of like, but I've been playing this game for upwards of 100 hours and I know how to get around, so maybe like it's that difficulty where I'm like, I appreciate what they're going for in terms of the reset, but if you just kind of let me skip a little bit of it, it would be okay.
Right.
But anyway, we begin the week. The first one for me, I think the first one is the same for everyone, but again, let's find out. I went to go hang out with An.
Yeah, I think the first one is scheduled or whatever.
Okay, cool. So yeah, you go to check up on An. She's hanging out in the underground mall, typically where you would find her normally to go hang out for confidant hangouts. And she's there hanging out with Shiho. And you talk a little bit. You realize in this reality, Shiho has just transferred to another school and is a volleyball star at that school, but she's actually going to be coming back to our school as well. And so you just kind of get a sense that like things are going well for Shiho. There does not seem to be any sort of like Kamoshida in the picture here. She seems to have left because like her family just transferred her, but things are going well enough and she can come back to the school, and it's not like a haunted place for her to have to return to. Like it's not difficult in that way. And so it seems like, their relationship is both very good and Shiho's life is better, know, in that sense. Like she hasn't gone through that pain.
Yeah. This is the process of like literally learning what everyone was wishing for, right?
Exactly.
And I think it's really, it's very sweet because on like family is always gone, right? And she's like doesn't feel like she fits in all the time and all this stuff, and what she wished for was just her friend's happiness and her friend back, which is like very, very sweet of her.
Yes, yeah. And I think something I really appreciate, because I do think there's a world where they could have taken it to like the superficial side of An's storyline and made it be about her becoming just an instantly famous uncontested model or something like that. But it shows that like at the end of the day, she did really, the friendship was the more important part. And this personal side of things really, really did matter in that way. And I think that's a really great sign for who An is. But of course, we're like, is this really what you want? Maybe you should remember. And you make her remember a little bit at the end of things. And that's the end of that day.
Yeah, that's the pattern you were talking about, right? Is like you get this moment where you see what their deal is and you chat with them a little bit. They look really, really happy, and then you say something that kind of like triggers a memory in them of what it was like before, and they start to be like, "What was that? Never mind. Bye." And like go off, and you sort of just like have to let them come to terms with it on their own, basically.
Exactly.
But that's the pattern that everyone falls into, and then it's just seeing what they're doing different and what they wished for and all that jazz.
Exactly. So pretty much for the next few days, we're just gonna kind of run through what their days were like and just get a sense of that real quick. So that day ends. I will say, as we get to some of them, sometimes Joker really is, it's a little rude the way he has to kind of force it through, but Anyway, the next day, this was the first day at least I could, as you're leaving the cafe, you can check in with human Morgana.
Yes.
And he'll give you a hint about someone to go talk to.
Right.
They're
all marked on the map, but that's okay.
Exactly. For me, he mentioned Haru being in Kichijoji, setting up shop. But anyway, I then went back into the subway, did the whole thing, and I ran into Sai and Makoto today.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, cool.
You can skip that one. I think you can walk by it, but I saw the little card on my map, and I was like, ooh, and
me too. This was also at a point where I didn't know if the game was going to stop you after one every day or maybe do a couple. Like I didn't really.
Right.
I had no idea, so I immediately stopped to talk to them. And this one is the two of them are out doing some shopping. They're going to go celebrate with their dad. It's essentially like Makoto's family life is in an okay place. Her dad is still there. She and Sai are getting along really well. It doesn't seem like work is getting in the way of things. The family situation there is a happy one.
Right.
And you basically have to be like, but really, does your family need to be happy like this? Come on.
Right.
And that's the end of the fourth.
Yeah, it's interesting. The Makoto one is really interesting because she basically is just like wished for her father back, right? Which is like, I don't know. It's just like, it's a very interesting sort of thing where like, what about her mom? Like, yeah. I don't fully understand why it was just her dad, but that's okay.
Sometimes you have a favorite parent, I guess, like parents have a favorite kid.
I guess, sure.
Yeah. And they do. They do have a favorite kid. Just know that. If you're one of several kids, they have a favorite.
This is really, and if it's very messed up.
And I was an only child growing up, so I was the favorite kid. That's why I'm saying it.
Wow.
I'm just trying to make you remember if this is the reality you want, Tom.
That hurt my feelings.
Are you saying it's your brother then?
As a younger sibling, yeah.
Oh, I mean, the younger one is usually the favorite according to television.
Oh, really?
Because you're the baby of the family. You're the one who needs to be protected.
Great.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, screw him. No.
Anyway, the siblings are getting along here. There's no issues.
Yes.
Everything seems to be fine.
And one thing I also really like about this week is that we get to see everybody's outfits, their new outfits.
Yes, yeah.
And Sai's new outfit is just like her old outfit, but with a coat and a scarf.
Yep.
It's just the same outfit.
I think it's appropriate for Sai. I feel like that tracks.
It's her business clothes. It's yeah.
Just a little bit prepared for the weather.
Anyway, we can move on.
Anyway, moving on to January 5th, run right through this week. Morgana suggested Ryuji for me. I was writing these down mostly because I was like, this might be important later, so I'm going to write it down. Obviously, it was not. But I did, in fact, go to the school today to talk to Ryuji.
I did as well.
Nice. So yeah, this is one of Ryuji. It's a bit of a longer one. He's talking to his teammates about he may have been recruited. You know, like his track career seems to be going well. The team seems to be getting along with him. Things seem to be going pretty well. And you have to basically rudely be like, you really want to, like, are these really your friends? Is this track life really what you want, man? Come on.
Undoubtedly the lowest stakes teammate of any of these.
Yeah.
3 of your party members have resurrected dead parents, and Ryuji is like, I can run again. like I know that was important to him.
Yes,
but it's like way lower stakes for Ryuji than anybody else in this situation.
But I do appreciate at the very least that it wasn't all just like a dead parent has come back to life for everyone.
Yes, that was nice. I mean, and like it is, I think it speaks volumes also to Ryuji as like a character that he's not like, I don't want my deadbeat dad to come back, right?
Yes,
like that's not what he wishes for, right?
Yeah.
I'm not like belittling what it means to the character or anything.
No, yeah.
But like it is very funny, like kind of how much lower stakes Ryuji just like hanging out with the track team is.
I think the thing you're speaking to is just because it is very funny where it's like Wakaba has been raised from the dead.
Yeah.
And is just hanging around. And as we learn later in this week, like her and Haru's dad, like they are real in this world. Like as far as we understand, they are alive. It is not like a construct that only they see. Like they exist. And so
but to his credit, he's very happy. He's very glad he can be running, and clearly this is still something that like he wanted to some extent, right? Yeah. Although again, we learn also that like how the wishes were taken were like not exactly like with intent all the time, right?
Yes.
Like they weren't. It wasn't like Ryuji was going, "Man, I wish I could be part of the track team again." It was like,
exactly.
Anyway.
Moving on from that day, January 5th, we can run right into January 6th. And I went to go see Haru on this day.
6th. Yeah, me too.
Cool.
Because we're dating.
True. Yeah. That was the funny thing for me, was seeing Makoto and there not being any recognition that we're dating in this reality.
Yeah.
What about what Joker wants?
Well, it's even funnier with Haru, because Haru's at Kichijoji, right, with her dad.
Yeah.
Who's like, they're picking out a new location for a new restaurant or whatever, and she's like being all businessy and cute, and he's being just like a really good father.
It's so strange. It like made me uncomfortable.
Yeah, and then he's like, "Ooh, is this a special boy?" And Haru's like, "Dad, stop!" And I'm like, "Yeah, but kinda."
Yeah, like I think he mentions that she talks about him a lot. Like, he's very much teasing her in this situation. It is so why this, I think, is the one that stood out the most for me, other than obviously just, Wakaba being alive, was just like the character change. Is really, I think, well done, because he is just so nice here. Like, any pretense that he is the same guy is just gone. Or he's really good at hiding it.
And to a certain extent, that is what Haru wanted, right? She didn't just want her dad back. Like, the whole reason she did the Phantom Thieves thing was because she wanted her dad to have a change of heart, right? Yeah. She wanted him to atone and be a better businessman and be good to his employees and be nice to her and all that. And so that's what she gets. She doesn't just get her dad back.
Yeah. He's not... Like, there is a way where you could have seen this where it's like he's around, but he's, firing people on the phone who are just useless workers to him or something. Yeah, he is a good father and seemingly good business leader.
Yeah, and she's leading the business with him.
Yes, yeah, which is nice to see, especially given how that's so much of her confidant line, is her reckoning with that stuff. But anyway, yeah, that's that day. They go off, take a break from their scouting, and that's the end of the 6th. Moving on to the 7th. The 7th is, I think, the last solo day without a little bit extra to it. And here, Futaba was who I went to go hang out with.
Me too. We did the exact same choices.
Perfect. Futaba and her family at the game store in Akihabara. She's trying to get them to buy things, and it's her, Sojiro, and Wakaba being happy together and just being a family. And
Sojiro's winter outfit is so baller.
It's so great. God. There's occasionally toys released of all of the characters. I'm like, I just want their winter outfit versions. Like, I'd buy statues of all those. Yeah. But yeah, it's all of them hanging out. Obviously, we get to see kind of just Futaba getting to be a kid with her parents. Like, getting to try to convince them of why she wants to buy this thing, of how it's important to her, of them taking interest, but also being just like, oh, we're having a good time as a family together. And it's just a very sweet, wonderful scene. And you have to be like, but do you really want this?
Yeah. It's very sad.
Yeah.
Because Futaba kind of picks up on it in a way that the others don't.
Yes.
To a certain extent, too. She, knows something's wrong really quick.
Yeah, you're totally right. There's a feeling to it for her. Yeah. But that's pretty much the 7th. I don't know if there's anything else from Futaba's day that's stuck out.
No, it just continues to be wild to see Wakaba as a character, especially if you've played the base game already. Like, Wakaba was just this Sphinx head lady and somebody who's talked about elsewhere. So to see Wakaba as a speaking character who is interacting directly with Futaba is it's really interesting. It's really, really... It's one of those things like Human Morgana where you just sort of never expected to see that.
I never did. Even as soon as the, reality change thing happened, I just didn't think Wakaba would be back. That one felt weird to me. And I maybe that speaks to why Futaba kind of feels it so quickly. That, there's sort of a... Especially because Wakaba's research is so wrapped up in everything that's happened. Mm-hmm. But anyway, we get to the 8th, January 8th, and things start to unravel from here a little bit more. This day was visiting Yusuke, going through the old routine and visiting him at the art display where his mom's famous piece is, of course, for all to appreciate. And it's just out there. People can enjoy this work as it was intended to be. It's something the world can see and adore as was meant. And he talks about being with his good my phone, because I've been recently texting about the hit Netflix series Sense8, changed sensei to sensate. So he was with his good sensate, and not his parents, which I thought was an interesting choice. That, like, at the end of the day, Yusuke's passion for his art and wanting to excel at that was sort of the dominant dream that formed itself here in this reality.
Right.
And not necessarily even having his mom back, but to be with someone who could teach him about art in that way.
Right.
So we get that whole conversation. Again, we try to get him to remember if this is really how things are meant to be, and abscond away. And then we get a little bit more at the end of the day, now that we have, discussed with all of our friends kind of what their lives are like, and hopefully force them to remember what reality is meant to be like. We get home, and Akechi calls in with some info. Some of the big things, and I'm kind of going between your notes and mine, so forgive me if I'm like bouncing around at all. But he digs first into Maruki and his college work, and everything that he had funding for. He had got funding for his cognitive science research, but it at some point like didn't have enough investors for the facility that they were going to make. Is to my memory of it, and they were like about to break ground, and then it was all just suddenly cut off mysteriously.
Yeah. That's pretty much the main point there, is that he was doing research into cognitive science, had support, and then that support ended unexpectedly. And like that, obviously there are parallels, right, that we can already draw to like Wakaba doing research and then suddenly it getting unexpectedly cut off. So there's sort of already, it's hinting at, but also tying into things that you learned pre-Royal Switch. Like, in the base game, all this stuff is stuff you've already kind of, like, touched on, and Akechi is sort of just, like, giving a new light to a certain extent.
Yeah. And we, as you said, especially... hopefully you paid attention to and not just went through Maruki's line, but we obviously knew a little bit about his past from there. Right. And some of that stuff will come up here as well. Akechi sort of just ponders why that happened and why he was studying it to begin with. But he also, through his research, confirms for us that Wakaba and Okumura are, like, alive. They are not cognitions or illusions of any kind. In this reality, they exist.
That's a really wild reveal, right? Because you sort of, I think, because of the way the metaverse works, you assume that these are cognitive versions or something like that. And it's like, nope, they are technically, they never died and they have been alive, and that is just how the world works.
It's a hell of a reality retcon that he does. But in addition to that, the other main thing he finds out is that the Phantom Thieves are a thing that, like, existed in this world, seemingly, but that Shido was the only one who was arrested and deemed, responsible for his crimes. The two of us were never arrested or sort of involved in that in this reality, and so that's why Akechi was so easily let go. And Akechi basically is just like, I'm not going to settle for this. Like, I can't just exist in this reality like this. I'm not going to allow him to have this sort of rule and power, and kind of ask you, is that what you want? And sort of presents again the question of, is this really, are you going to settle for this?
Yeah.
We get that. We know that we plan to go to Odaiba again to meet up and go to the palace. Morgana overhears this a little bit, which will obviously play in a little bit.
Morgana just still sleeping on your couch for this entire week as a human.
No one has an issue with it. Like, get that dude to bed.
Yeah, it's incredible to think about the implications of how fast this week goes with Morgana being a human the entire time. Morgana has spent a week on the couch with no blanket and no bed and just, like, sleeping in your room. And every night you go to sleep thinking about who you're going to talk to the next day. And Morgana is just there, 5 feet away from you.
Yep. What, like, did we not have any conversations with him during all this while we're going to bed?
And to be fair, every time you talk with Morgana when you're about to leave the house, right? Morgana kind of is clearly working through this, right? In their own head. They're like, want to be alone, want to take walks, aren't feeling great, right? Like, it's still processing.
Yeah, I think it's meant to show also, like, essentially that once you've kind of caused this train of thought to begin in them, it is something that sticks with them.
Right.
Because, there is the whole routine of the week. I think it would have been even more a little annoying because the payoff wouldn't have really been there if, like, every day you could go back and check in on people and they'd be like, I just got to think about things. Like, there's no need for that, and he can represent that kind of for everyone to an extent. But anyway, we get to January 9th. Again, wonderful timing that our weeks line up the way that they do. We have January 9th, and it is time to maybe make a choice. And we meet back up at Odaiba with Akechi, and then I love, as you put, and then go shopping.
Yes.
The game does give you the moment before you can go into the palace to go do some quick shopping if you need to.
Well, it does this funny thing the first time you go into the palace last week, too, where it put a chest right at the beginning of the palace that gives you, like, a few healing items and a few res items.
Yeah.
Because theoretically, you just beat the final boss, and you might have just used a ton of healing items and a ton of, like, all your support stuff, theoretically, if you were low on those things or whatever. Obviously, we talked about how much money we had, right? And so I had like 50 full res items, and like 50 full heal items, and just like didn't worry about it. But this is the opportunity of, if you like took that final boss fight seriously as a final boss fight and used all your stuff, then you can go back and you can buy some other things.
Yeah, there were definitely a few Takemi items that I still had like 99 of. I was like, okay, I'm good. But I bought a bit extra because it is that thing of you're going in with a small party at the moment. So
right, just you and Akechi.
It doesn't hurt to have all that stuff, even if you're using the items in between battles. It's just good to have that so you're not wasting SP when you don't need to, and just having all that stuff to go.
Yeah.
But we all go into the palace, and while we do, back at the cafe, everyone gathers. All of the other Phantom Thieves gather because they've just had something on their minds for the past week. Morgana lets them know that we're meeting up with Akechi, and they're worried if Joker is right and that there might be something, up at the moment. It feels like they're hiding themselves from the truth. A few of them talk about things like going on. Haru says she saw a mysterious sight. Futaba is scared to remember, but doesn't want to feel this way and is really conflicted about it. Yusuke says his memory was of all of them here. Like, there is some importance to all of them gathering here. Right. An is worried that she'll lose her connection to Joker, and that we all will if they don't remember. Like, this seemingly very important friendship that suddenly isn't as important feels like it's going to be lost if they don't remember what they need to. And then the screen shatters.
Yeah.
And then we cut away. But I love that. Like, it was very clear to me.
Morgana's a cat.
Yep. It was very clear to me what that moment meant, but I loved the screen, like the fourth wall breaking nature of the screen shattering.
It's great. Yeah, Morgana just being like, I'm not going to put up with it anymore. And then the screen just breaks and everyone's like, oh, Morgana cat. And then it goes away.
Yeah. It's really, really good. It's such a great moment. We'll obviously get back to that as we get a little further into it. But for now, we jump into a little bit more palace exploration, but not that much.
It's real light.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. We're not doing any crazy puzzles. It's just some battles, a couple new rooms and hallways. I would say not even a ton. And
to that point, like it's not meant to be a big infiltration.
Exactly.
Because you go into that first kind of open area and like you're literally referred to as like a VIP guest or whatever, and Maruki tells you exactly where he's gonna be and you go to talk to him, right? Like, and you have to fight a few people on the way there, but it is not like this big old sort of like trudge to get to him. He's invited you in. I still really like the look of this palace. I love the music in this palace. It's funny, this is the third time we've been in it now, right?
Including the long time ago.
Yeah. So you revisit this palace a lot before the actual, before any sort of actual infiltration starts.
Yeah. And I'm just excited to see more of it, I hope. I don't, I have no idea, but I'm excited to see more of it because, as you said, I think the look of it's really interesting and really unique from a few of the past ones that have been darker. Like the brightness of this one is almost overbearing in an interesting way.
Yeah.
And as you said, the soundtrack is just continues to be great. So.
And there's the other thing I like about these is that it doesn't just make you do the same thing over and over again. Like you're not retreading the same steps every time, because the first time you go in, it's just like you only get like 2 rooms in, and the second time you go in, it's you literally look at that door to the left that you go in the third time, and you're like, we can't deal with that right now, it's locked or whatever, and you go down this other path. And then this time you go down there, the locked door, and now there's another locked door that they're like, we can't deal with this right now. Like, we'll just go towards Maruki. And so, like, it does a good job of, like, opening new sort of things every infiltration. So it's not just, like, making you do the same stuff over and over and over. It's, like, different areas of the palace each time.
No, totally. Yeah. It's... For something that you need to come back to over and over again, they really made it not feel like a slog to revisit every time.
Right.
But so we venture through a very quick sort of couple rooms. I don't think it's really worth going through. Ooh, I just hit my mic. Sorry if that was loud. There's not really much to these rooms. Not much happens in there. So we get to, though, the big room where Maruki has Sumire. It's really hard for me to call her that. Slumped in a chair. Obviously, we assume the worst at first, but he says she's sleeping. He would, like, obviously never hurt her. And that once her inner turmoil is over, she can live her life. Akechi at this point sort of accuses him of just essentially brainwashing for his own self-satisfaction. And Maruki brings up the point that, like, sure, this is getting him what he wants and having this power and everything, but if it gets everyone else to have a life that's happy, isn't that a pretty small price to pay to have this one person have that power? And you know, it again brings up, I think, something that you had talked about last week of the morally gray nature of everything going on, where it's like,
right.
I can pretty easily disagree with Maruki, but I can see where his train of thought is.
Yeah, and it's also like, it's not like I mean, every villain thinks that they're the good guy or whatever. Like, all the good ones think that they're the good guy. But, like, at the same time, like, he is genuinely trying to do good to a certain extent. He's genuinely, like, trying to make people happy, right? And to what you've seen is, like, your friends are happy, like, right? Like, maybe they didn't wish for this, and it's not correct. But, like, that doesn't mean that, you know, Haru is unhappy having her like very good father alive, right?
Yeah.
Like that's it. So it is like you said, it's not right, but it is like it's not cut and dry either.
Yeah, like I very much am with Akechi, where I'm like, I don't want this one man to have this power and go mad with it. And sure, he may be working toward everyone's happiness right now, but what if he decides to have a different train of thought? And decides everyone being unhappy will make him happier. What do we do that? Like, there's just, then we lose all self-control. And so that all makes sense. But yeah, as you said, you see everyone happy. And it was at times tough during this whole past week to be like, do you really want this? And it's like, well, they do, mostly.
Yeah.
But, like, I also don't want them to live a lie, necessarily.
Right.
So anyway, we have this whole back and forth about whether it's what we really want, if we want to stay. We saw our friends. We got to speak with all of them. Do we want to accept this reality or not? And you can accept or refuse.
Yeah.
I accepted.
I did too, because that's how the game keeps going.
Exactly. Excuse me, we refuse that we want his thing.
Yes. Excuse me.
Yeah. But you can choose the reality.
So here's what I'll say. If you haven't played Royal already, maybe wait until this is over, right, to go and watch this on YouTube, just to be careful of spoilery stuff. If you have played Royal already, or you're not quite as worried, because I don't think it'll be spoilery, it's just, you know, you never know what you find in YouTube thumbnails.
Sure.
Google or YouTube, search on YouTube for, like, the, like, Maruki choice ending or whatever, like, taking Maruki's deal ending or whatever it's called, and just watch it, because it is wild. Like, it is a full 10 to 15 minutes of voiced scenes, like, where first you get this scene, and none of this is spoiler because this is literally the end of the game, right? That you're not ever gonna see now. Like one of them, it's like it starts with like basically just like everyone hanging out and being happy and LeBlanc together, and like just it's all great. And then you have a scene with Sojiro, and then you like it jumps a bit to like Shujin graduation of like everyone hanging out at graduation together, and like it's like yeah, it's nuts, right? Like it is. And then the whole credit roll has these like anime style shots of like, you know, like the cutscene style
oh my God.
of like all of the different party members like happy, like it's like An and Shiho hanging out. There's this one that just crushes my heart that's Futaba in a Shujin uniform walking to school with Sojiro and Wakaba, right? Like it's all of like you usually call these endings in games like this where you can like take the wrong path, like the quote unquote bad ending. This is referred to as like a bad ending, but like it is like unambiguously happy. Like
that's wild.
And it's also got this tinge of sort of like negativity to it because
Sure.
like Maruki is like a really nice touch is like the entire credit roll is going at an angle, and there's kind of that blue shimmer to all the letters, and the music that's playing is Maruki's theme really slow, like a really slow version of it.
Oh man.
So
Yeah.
like it's still implying that you are like under his control to a certain extent, but like there's nothing like bad about what's happening.
So interesting. Like I'll watch for myself, and obviously for people who want to, they should. But like, so it doesn't sort of, other than that stuff, it there's not like a creeping, like evil Baruki rise.
There's like a little bit of stuff, like you should watch it.
Okay.
I don't want to spoil it entirely. I'm just trying to give like the tone of like
Sure.
what's going on to it, right?
Yeah.
And like there is a bit of sort of like nefariousness going on, but it's not like, it's similar-ish to the bad ending of the when you take the deal of the god, where like everyone is happy and the Phantom Thieves are famous or whatever, but like the difference in that one is that there is kind of like a like something is wrong sort of undertone.
Yeah.
And there is a something is wrong undertone to this one, but it's also like everyone is just really happy. Like,
Fascinating. Man.
it's a lot.
All right.
Again, if you haven't beaten Royal already, I'd probably recommend you just wait a month or whatever until the Royal stuff is done. But if you have already beaten Royal or like don't care, really look up this cutscene because it's like it is genuinely like 10 minutes of like fully voiced conversation.
That's wild. That
you'll never see otherwise.
Again, crazy attention to detail. That's so cool. Yeah. Well, you can make that choice, or you can refuse his reality, which we did, because we need to keep doing the show. So we refuse that reality and refuse his deal. And at this point, there's sort of like a bright flash of light. Sumire wakes up and is pleading with us to let her be Kasumi. She still wants... Everyone else has changed, but like she very much is, I want to still be Kasumi. Like, I cannot live in a world where I cause Kasumi's death. And mixed up in her wanting all of this, she essentially, like, Maruki helps her attack you. Or no, that's the second phase. First, she just attacks you.
First is just you, Joker, and Kasumi fight one-on-one.
It's a one-on-one fight. Yeah, which is great. Just a couple things on that. Yeah.
The funniest part of that fight is Akechi at the beginning of it being like, listen, I could easily kill her right now if you want me to, but I don't think you do, so I'm just going to let you handle this.
It's really good, yeah.
And then the other thing about that is that she only uses physical attacks. She uses, like, Blade Dance or whatever it is. So I had a persona equipped that absorbs physical attacks, and so she just, like, literally didn't do any damage to me the entire fight.
Wonderful.
The other really nice kind of thematic touch, and maybe this is me reading too much into it, but because she also uses, like, charge and, like, other things like that, but, like, the only attack she will use is a, like, physical ability, which all of those moves damage you, right? And they don't damage her because she's an NPC, and that's playing by different rules, but, like, I love the idea thematically that she's in such, like, a kind of, like, fit of a state trying to protect herself, even though it's not good for her, that she's only using attacks that harm her as well. Yeah. She's literally harming herself by fighting back against you. Like, again, not mechanically in this case, but like thematically, that's what that move is.
Sure.
Maybe I'm reading too much into that, but I think that is like a really interesting thing.
Read too much into it on this show? That doesn't make any sense. But no, I really like that train of thought. I do think that makes a lot of sense. Because this fight does feel strange in general to be fighting Kasumi.
Right.
You obviously don't want to. As Akechi points out, it's not like you want to kill her in this. And so I do think everything like you're pointing to makes a lot of sense and adds, again, just adds layers to some of these fights in such cool ways. But you have this fight with her. You eventually, hopefully, defeat her, but, obviously don't kill her or anything. And are hoping to make this connection with her and get her to see the light. But Maruki comes essentially to comfort her and says he can make her pain end. And he actualizes that dream by trapping her and using her persona to fight you with giant gross tentacles, basically trapping Sumire and forcing her persona to kind of go aggro on you.
Yeah, isn't that wild?
It feels so wrong.
You're fighting a persona?
Yeah. Well, it's like, it is the... I think it's sort of one of the biggest signs so far of Maruki, like, crossing a line.
Right.
And obviously everything he's doing is crossing a line because he's tampering with people's lives without their consent. Sure. But in terms of, like, the darkness of it, or because, like, this isn't making anyone happy that he's doing this. Like, he's clearly causing her some pain, some uncertainty, some frustration in all this, but he doesn't want to fight, so he's using her persona.
And it's reminiscent of Akechi, right?
Yes.
Make that red sort of glow around her persona is reminiscent of what Akechi does to shadows or his own persona to kind of like make them go nuts.
Yeah. It's a really cool moment. He says that she is sort of like lost sight of things, turns her persona kind of rabid on us, and we fight it for a bit. It doesn't really, we're not doing much. We can't seem to defeat it. And then our friends are our power and they show up. The whole gang is back together again. Yeah. At first it's just Ryuji. You hear some strange voice and it's Ryuji. Ryuji shows up and then the whole gang is there and they're like, well, this is really confusing. What's going on here? And then someone's like, we can't explain right now. Let's just fight the big thing and then we'll get to all that.
Yeah. And the other thing about it too is like there is an important moment here where Maruki's like, I gave you all what you wanted, and they're like, I think Ryuji specifically is like, we didn't ask for that.
Yeah.
Right? Like I think that is an important moment too, that like, yes, he's changed things to make everybody happy based on these like wishes that he thinks they have, but like it is a reminder that nobody actively asked him to do that. Yeah. Right? Like nobody, it's not like these people specifically said, please make all my wishes come true. Please bring my dad back or whatever. Like he just did that stuff.
Yep. It's a really interesting juxtaposition to the palace, because in the palace, it's theoretically like people are showing up to try to be cured or to try to figure out what's wrong.
Right.
But they're not actually doing that to It's not like they're showing up at Maruki's house and being like, please, sir, may I have my family back? That's not what's happening here, as you said. And so everyone shows up, kind of starts to chip away at this idea of what he's doing, being so altruistic and everything. And we go into a full party fight for the first time in a while to fight against this persona. I don't know if it's different person to person. I don't know if you remember, but I had Akechi, Ryuji, and Morgana in my party.
Yeah, okay. Although I swapped Ryuji out immediately.
The dude just wanted to show that he didn't need the track team, man. Come on.
He blocked that one shot. That's fine. Bring in Yusuke.
Anyway, you fight against the big thing together as a team. It's a pretty decent fight, I would say. I don't have like a huge amount of thoughts to it, but you need to kind of just juggle. It essentially has the ability to consume the other persona or the other enemies that get summoned, and so you need to not make sure it has those to keep its health going back up enough.
What I'll say is it's a mechanically fun fight because it's a little bit nuanced, right, in what the strategy should be, right? Because it will consume, like you said, it'll consume those other personas to heal them. They have 600 health, and whatever their health is at is how much the main thing heals.
Yeah.
So there's this strategy of like, if I weaken those personas without killing them, then when she eats them, it won't heal her as much. But then they'll still be around to use Heat Riser and attack and do these other things. So it's sort of this trade-off that you have to decide of like, do I want less things attacking me, or do I want to leave them around with lower health to try to like slow the healing process down? And I like that because it's not a straightforward sort of decision, and it's also a fun fight to figure out rather than just like it being, what's its weakness? Okay, I'm going to use that, right?
Yeah, exactly. And especially because the cadence of them bringing new guys back isn't like every single round.
Right.
There is some variation there. So you are making.
Do you take the risk, wipe the board, and then maybe they get summoned back right away, or maybe you kind of have a moment of reprieve?
Exactly. Yeah. It is a fun fight in that way, especially to come this late in the game with some stuff like that. It's fun to have, but we eventually defeat this persona of Sumire's, unfortunately, at this point, and everyone shows up to help us beat it, and we're all like surprised. The gang kind of realizes it's Maruki and everything. He tells them that it's fine that even if they try to take his heart and come and change things and do their usual palace stuff, but he believes saving Sumire, who is, essentially collapsed and out of it right now, is the most important thing. So he's like, we're done for now. I don't want to deal with this anymore. And like, you can come back and you can do your whole Phantom Thieves thing, but this is what I'm going to do right now.
Yeah.
And so he essentially takes her away and escapes, saying that he wants sort of our final decision on February 3rd.
Right.
AKA
well, he doesn't take her away.
Excuse me. Yes. Yeah. Excuse me. He says this is what he wants. That's essentially our deadline. If our views don't align, we will have to fight, even though he doesn't like to. But he won't give up what he started. He swore he'd do it on the day he lost everything. And we realize that at this point we can't pursue him, and we leave.
Right.
Yeah. And yes, forgive me. I was incorrect about Sumire. I will just leave the show. Goodbye. No, anyway, we're back outside the palace with the whole gang. Everyone's sort of in shock about things. We fill them in, obviously, to let them know kind of what's been going on with their lives and our lives. They, as I said in my notes, I thought I was really clever when I wrote this. I wrote they should have just listened to our last episode and they would have known. Oh, Tom, sometimes I crack myself up. Anyway, we're having this whole discussion, and Akechi shows up. And sort of
shows back up.
Yes, excuse me, shows back up because he's not with the group.
Right.
And he sort of sees himself as the leader of things, basically, is what I enjoy about this. He's like, I'm doing this, wants us all to team up with him. Sumire wakes up at this point. We have her. She was unconscious and she wakes up. We learn the semester starts tomorrow. So
yeah, don't forget about school.
School's starting back up, which is always wonderful. And that's sort of where we leave things for the start, I guess, of this mission start.
Yeah. The kind of key things here are that, like, or key takeaway moments are the group sort of, like, accepts that Akechi is not their enemy right now.
Yeah.
Right? And then the other thing is that when Sumire wakes up, she, like, apologizes for causing so much trouble. So clearly she is, like, calmed down a little bit from...
Yes.
She was, during the whole Maruki thing, like, she just, like, couldn't live with herself as Sumire, right? As the one who killed Kasumi, and was, like, really, really distraught. So she has now calmed down to a certain extent in all of this.
Yeah, the fact that she's not just immediately saying, I can't be Sumire, like,
Right.
That's not the only thing on her mind immediately is a good sign for her.
Yeah.
Anyway, we go back home. Futaba tries to, like, gauge the situation with Sojiro and kind of hints at Wakaba and everything. And he's like, oh, yeah, I was thinking about her recently, too. It seems she's gone now. Like,
right.
Reality, again, has changed so quickly that she seems to be gone. And it doesn't seem to have caused any issues. Like, it wasn't a sudden loss or something.
Right.
So that all happened. She then explains about how the group ended up at the cafe together, having the shattering, everyone realizing Morgana's a cat. They remember him being human for a little bit of time and are like, why were you human? But enough to realize something's been wrong and they need to go investigate and help. Futaba is having some trouble, though, obviously, because she has this now conflicted time where she spent with Wakaba, who now doesn't exist again. So she kind of heads off, and then we head to bed.
Yeah, and there's a continuing theme kind of through all their conversations about, like, knowing something is wrong, and it's the same thing that Sumire said the last episode, right? Of, like, knowing something's wrong, knowing they need to know what it is, or else they won't feel better, but, like, also being afraid to know the answer.
Exactly.
Which is, like, even without mind tampering, like, kind of a very relatable situation, right? Of, like, I know I need to, like, know this thing, but I am terrified to know, like, if you're, like, waiting for, like, you know, a job application or, like, a college application or, like, like a test result, something like that. Like, that sort of feeling of, like, I have to open this envelope, but I do not want to, but I know I need to, is, like, it's very relatable.
Oh, totally. Absolutely. And then, we head to bed. I don't think I saw what happened next, because I think I saved here. I don't know if you want to mention
okay.
But
yeah, there's you get the Velvet Room, and I won't go into super detail, but, like, it's, like, an incredibly quick Velvet Room trip.
Okay.
Where basically they're just like, hooray! We have made contact with you again. Goodbye. Okay. So, like, basically just checking in to be like, yeah, you're still going to be able to go to the Velvet Room.
Cool. Perfect. Can still fuse personas.
Yeah, exactly.
And that pretty much wraps us up for the week of January 3rd through the 9th.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up this episode, though, do want to jump into some persona, pseudonym, and pop quiz. Tom, I'll give you what I hope is a relatively easy one.
Okay.
This is known as it might only be known as this in No. Anyway, who is the hedonistic braggart? I don't know if we've run into them, but I liked this one.
Hedonistic braggart. I'm trying to think of, there was one person that you fought with next to Bugs, but I can't remember who that was now. I don't know if I've seen this person yet, or at least I don't immediately recognize the name.
Do you know who, but then I might leave that one for now. Do you know who the Dream-Dwelling Skull is?
No.
Well.
I don't know either of those.
Damn. Well, I'm going to give you the first one. I'll leave the other one as a cliffhanger. The first one was Dionysus.
Oh, okay. So Dionysus was an earlier one then.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Hedonistic braggart. Yeah, that fits.
It does. I'll leave the other one for another week, but for now, what's your pop quiz question for us?
Okay, so the game gives you free reign to run around the map a little bit, right? While not free reign, but, like, it lets you wander and talk to people. One of my favorite things that it does is it puts a very familiar face right outside the front door of Leblon on the first day you leave. Which is Kotaro the dog is suddenly not old and lazy anymore. His owners wished for him to be healthy again, and he's healthy again. Hooray!
That was really cute. Yeah.
And they, like, position him right outside the door to Leblon, and then the entire rest of the week he's back in the corner where he usually is, which I find very funny.
Yeah.
There's another familiar face, two familiar faces actually, technically, depending on how far you got into some certain confidant paths, that you can find on Central Street, which is a place you have no reason to go this week, but can.
Huh.
So, who is the familiar face that you might be surprised to see, depending on when you go to Central Street this week? Who's the familiar face you see on Central Street, and what are they doing?
It's the protagonist from Persona 4.
It's true. No.
I wouldn't even know. Anyway, please feel free to leave your answers to that pop quiz question In the YouTube comments for this week's show, you can go to youtube.com/Dornology to find this episode and all the old episodes if you want to revisit them. Or if you just jumped into this episode and were like, I seem to be missing some context for the rest of this discussion. Other than that, of course, you can also write into dornology@gmail.com, either with answers or any other questions that you want to send in. And again, wherever you're listening or watching this, please consider subscribing, reviewing it, rating it, giving it the 5 stars or the thumbs up or whatever the platforms allow you to do these days. If you're enjoying the show, we love doing it and hope you've been enjoying it as well. We've got a little bit more royal content to dig into in the coming weeks. I'm very excited. I have no idea what's coming, so I will rely all on Tom. No pressure. But
it's gonna be great.
I'm excited.
This week, this coming week will be fun.
All right, we're going to get into it. I don't know what it is, but we'll find out on next week's episode 41. But thank you for joining us for episode 40. In the meantime, you can find us both on Twitter. I'm at JM Dornbush. Tom is at Tom R. Marks. But it's getting pretty late, and Morgana's telling us to go to sleep back in his cat form.
Actually this time.
So until next time, nice to steal you.